right. I believe that we are live. Hello, everyone. I'm Kyle, AA0Z, and welcome to the new CW Operators Roundtable. We've got a very interesting topic tonight, but first we're going to introduce the panel here, as these should be familiar faces. Vince, hello. How are you?
Hello, good after evening, noon. I'm great. And you?
Good, good. We have TJ back. Hello, TJ.
Going on, everybody?
And Adam. Hello, Adam.
Hello. Happy to be here. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. So we've got Adam. How long do you think you got going on here about our topic? Do we have? I forgot to ask that in the pre thing.
Yeah, I put together some slides to try to give some visuals to help explain my understanding of Iambic A versus B. And I've got 14 total slides or visuals to go with it. I would guess maybe 15 minutes or so to kind of talk through those, but I'm sure there's going to be some discussion as well.
Yeah, so tonight is Iambic A versus Iambic B. There's a lot of discussion. We've been talking about iambic paddles and Iambic A and Iambic B for a couple of weeks now, almost probably a month. But first, I think that, we got a shorter topic tonight, so I kind of want to go around the room and see what you've been doing in CW land. Vince, I know that you have got your 200 QSOs per month challenge. So how is that coming? Should I ask? Should we not ask? Oh, no. Come on, Vince.
CW QSOs was that?
CW QSOs. So it was New Year's Eve, and there might have been beer involved, and I was on a live stream, and I set a goal to say I want to activate 200 CW QSOs doing POTA per month, every month in 2023. I also said I'd release a video every month in 2023. I don't know why I said that. That's okay. Why is a podcasting guy releasing videos, right? Anyway, so how am I doing? Right? Oh, yeah, well, no, this one doesn't, because that's when I'm not producing this one. That's okay. We came up with a great topic in the pre-show, so I'm going to do that. So I'm sorry, I'm looking over on the whiteboard over there. I am at 287. So where I would hope to have been at 600 by the end of March, I'm not. I got some catching up to do.
You do. Well, you've got almost a whole year left, so.
I do, and I will get there, because in May I go back into CW Academy.
Very good.
So very why 200? I mean, that's a good number. That's a big number, right?
Well, because I thought to myself,
50 a week, which is
like 50. Well, and I can do 50 an hour at my current rate, and if conditions are okay, and I can hear things, but I went out for a couple hours in these past 2 weeks, and one of them, I drove my wife into the city to an event, and the Trans-Canada Trail runs right beside it. So, there's my spot. Well, I happen to pick like a G17 solar storm or something to try and activate in. And I could not hear WWV in Alberta. So that's bad. I was being heard by 2 reverse beacons on 2 bands. Nobody heard me for an hour. So, stuff like that happens too, right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, yeah. Vince, give me some more audio on your side.
I'm going to give you some more audio.
All right.
I'm going to talk about how great CW is.
Very good.
You said, okay, great. So I'll stop now.
Thank you. Do you have any POTAs planned in the next couple of weeks?
I do not have any POTAs planned. Everything right now is catch as catch can. I have a ton of paperwork on my desk I'm trying to clear through. I haven't picked up a soldering iron in 6 weeks, and I'm getting twitchy. So,
gotcha.
when I can get some POTA in, it's a good day.
Yeah. Very good.
I'll get through that, and Canada Revenue will be off my back, and all will be right with the world, and I won't be led away in, silver handcuffs.
TJ, what is happening in your world for CW? What have you been on the air lately?
Haven't been on the air since this morning. So it's been a while. And I was harassing folks at the Missouri QSO party event over where you were. So yeah, of course I'm trying to contact CJ he was running 40 meters W0W, and he tried to like send him some. I was like, hey CJ, it's TJ, which sounds weird, and like my key stuck. It was like like no. So it was a blast. But yeah, I think I got a new country on 30 meters this morning. Can't remember which one it was, but it was
Very good. Very good. All right. There's a fly. Sorry. Dang flies fly to the light. Adam, what have you been doing in the CW world lately?
I have not been on the air much at all. I've been just really busy working long days and busy on the weekends with personal stuff. So unfortunately haven't been operating much lately, but I am taking some days off next week from work. I'll be camping with my family. My sister's visiting from up in Bend, Oregon, Tim's neck of the woods. And she and her husband are down here, so we're going to go with my mom, my stepdad, and go camping out in Anza Borrego Desert State Park. And I'm sure I will have a rig out there to do a little bit of POTA activating, maybe even a soda or two while we're out there.
Very cool. Do you you've got the HRCC campout coming up soon? Is that still on?
Yes, it is indeed. Yeah, that's just maybe 5 or 10 miles from my house here in Ramona. And it's full, so it's all booked up. I think there's going to be maybe 25 or 30 people out there with Josh for his birthday, and it should be a really good time.
Very cool. Yeah, I was trying to get out there, but the schedule just didn't line up. But yeah, that should be a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be a blast.
So look for everyone on the air. I think it's the last weekend in April, I believe. That's when it is. So yeah, there'll be a lot of people on the air from Southern California, so that'd be good. I had Missouri QSO party this past weekend, and nice. I organize our contest group, so I'm there to pump morale up and make sure people are fed and they are on the air and radios are being activated and worked on and solving problems. So I really didn't make too many QSOs this weekend. I did make a few CW contacts, but those contesters, whenever they're mobile and they're going up hills and whatnot, and they're activating while they're rolling in their car, and the band is in and out, and I'm trying to run at 30 words a minute, it makes it tough. Especially even when searching and pouncing. I'd have to ask for their county again a couple more times before I actually got it. But I made some QSOs. I think I'm gonna try and go out this weekend while I'm back home visiting the parents for Easter to get to our state park and do some POTA. So hopefully I'll be on the air and make some QSOs. Like you, Adam, I have not. I've been on the air doing POTA, but I have not been on the air to actually do CW. I don't really consider me sitting in my house and searching and pouncing CW doing CW, right? That's easy. You're just sending your call sign and a 599 and a mo, quickly, and that's not really. It's not stimulating the brain. So I'm gonna hopefully get out there and make some cues.
It's a different game for sure when you're running versus searching and pouncing.
It totally
here
is.
And there.
Totally is. So, all right, our topic tonight is Iambic A versus Iambic B, and Adam, I think, has put together some slides and some things that hopefully will decrypt the mystery of Iambic A versus Iambic B. So let's get into them and make sure. Yep, you can share your screen if you want. But Adam, the floor is yours. Right. If you want to just go ahead and go.
Cool. Sounds good. Let me get the screen share started here. 1 second. Get this up into full screen. Let's see. How do you do this here?
Kind of full screen.
Control F5.
There you go.
How's that look?
That looks great.
Cool. So I threw together some graphics here to try to help explain this. And bottom line here, we're going to be talking about Iambic A versus Iambic B. And some terms I want to kind of point out here. I put some call outs here to try to illustrate some different things. And when I'm talking about the dit lever, it's generally for right-handed operators, it's your thumb. It's the, oh, I have a typo there. The dit lever is the thumb, the left-hand lever for a right-handed operator, and the da lever, don't mind the typo there, is the opposite, the right index finger lever. And then I tried to illustrate on the screen, and this is kind of the format you're going to see throughout. The top half here is the input side, basically the iambic paddle side, and the dit row here is intended to illustrate where it's shaded, the duration in time.
Yep.
I'm moving to the right side of the screen, that the dit lever is pressed.
Yeah.
And then same thing for the da here on the bottom there of the input side.
Got
and again, time kind of goes from left to right. And then if we look down at the bottom, we're going to have the output for Iambic A mode in blue and Iambic B mode in green. And a dit or a dot in Morse code looks like an even square there, one sort of time period long with one time period space between individual elements, be it a dot or a dash. And then the dashes, of course, are 3 times the length of a dot.
Yeah.
So does that all make sense? Any questions on that?
Yeah. I mean, that is a very, it's totally understand it. And the timeline of the dit and the da and the input versus the output, totally get it. Yep.
Cool. Okay. So the other thing to note is that in this mode, I can't see the chat. So if any questions pop up and you want to relay them to me, please do. Will do. So typical operation that I guess newer iambic paddle users typically do is what I would call swiping. And you're kind of just swatting your fingers back and forth on the levers, pressing only one lever at a time. And you can see that here in the dit and da input side. And there's typically not really any overlap in those inputs or presses of the levers. And you can see how the timing doesn't always perfectly line up with when the characters are actually sending, but that's okay because it's kind of somewhat forgiving in when it registers the next character.
So why is, all right, so go back to that, Adam. Why is the dit, so I see the da and the da paddles, so the top is what you're inputting into the paddle, but would you say that the dit, like,
that's the squeeze time? Or
that's the squeeze. That's the
push time, right?
If we think of an electronic switch, right? That's the amount of time that we're closing that contact.
I see.
So for example, in this mode, I think you guys can see my cursor there.
Yeah.
So the da here is pressed for about 3/4 of the length of the actual sending of the da, but for that to work, you really only have to press it for a small fraction of that. It doesn't matter how long it's pressed in that case. If it's just very briefly pressed, it'll still send that full 3 time unit length, tone or element for the dash. And same thing with the dot here. Even if you happen to press the dot key or dit lever, I'll use my terminology there, for a longer amount of time than the dot actually ends up sending, it'll still just send that dot. But the timing is really what's important there. So there are a couple of elements to the timing. One of them is key down or closing of the switch, basically when you begin to press the lever. And the other key element of timing is the other end here where the shading ends, and that's when you release the lever. So we'll talk more about that in a minute, and we can come back to these and dig into it further if we need to.
Okay.
So again, this is kind of your typical swiping style of sending without squeezing anything.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's generally pretty forgiving with timing, unless you get too crazy with it and start going too fast. But even with this fast of timing, it'll still work. So because the key press here for the first first dash begins sending upon key down or lever press, closing of the switch for the dash. And then if at any time, basically before that next element would start, you press the dit key, it will trigger the dit to send. And then again, during the sending of the dit, and anytime before this yellow line here, if you are pressing the da key, it'll look ahead and sort of fill that buffer for what the next character to send is, even though it hasn't even finished sending the current character. So it kind of thinks ahead. It has a little bit of a buffer to it.
Okay.
And then same thing here for this final dit, because the dit lever was pressed after this final dash started sending, it registers that into the buffer and it'll send that dit at the end. And that works the same for both Iambic A and Iambic B in this scenario.
Okay. All right.
So again, the key thing is that it's pretty forgiving with timing on this. And if only one lever is pressed while a character is, or an element is sending, and it's the, whoops. Oh no, I've screwed up here. Let me get back in here. Back to where I was. So if only one lever is pressed, and it's pressed at all while the opposite element is sending, so if the dit lever is pressed while the da element is sending, it will, when that da element is done, it'll send the dit after it.
Okay. Yep. All right. Your last sentence molded it all together for me. Understood now.
Okay. So that's the swiping kind of thing. But if you get too fast and press and release that final dit before the da even starts, the third character there of this, or element of the C, then it's not going to send that final element because you press the button to the lever too soon. And if you set your keyer real slow, so like as slow as it goes, depending on what kind of unit you have, you can kind of experiment with these things and figure out what it allows you to do and what it doesn't.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Yep.
So again,
I have
experienced. I was just going to say this yellow line is kind of the cutoff point there. So
yeah.
So yeah. Go ahead.
And I have experienced what you have drawn there on, if you pull if you don't hit your dit, or you don't press the dit lever, if you let go of the dit lever before that second da, it's not going to send that dit because of some, I guess, part of that partial memory that happens where if you press it or let go of it after you have started to send the da, it will go ahead and send the dit after the da. Right?
Correct. Yep.
So your spacing and your timing is really important if you want to send that second dit on when you release.
Yeah, I mean it is somewhat forgiving. And again, this is for swiping. So this is for, you're never pressing both levers at the same time.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
So both modes work the same way for swiping. There's going to be no difference because when only one lever is pressed, the two modes operate the same. They start to differ when both levers are pressed. And when both levers are pressed, we refer to that as squeezing. So the common way to send a C with an iambic squeeze method would be to begin to key down with your thumb with the left lever, with with your index finger with the da lever, and then hold that and squeeze the dit lever. And then when both levers are squeezed, as you probably know, it sends alternating characters starting with the one that you pressed first. And if you let go of one lever, so in this case, we let go of the da lever while it was sending a da element, or a dash element, and kept holding down the dit lever until the dit element began to send, then regardless of whether it's iambic A or iambic B, we're going to get the same thing. So it kind of boils down to some timing there. If you release the lever during the character or the element that's being sent for that lever, then you're going to get the same operation for iambic A and B.
Yeah.
All good there?
All good there.
All right.
I understand that. Yep.
So, so I think I'm not certain of this one. I thought about removing this one, but yeah, I'm fairly certain this is correct. So this will, both modes also operate the same if you release the opposite element. Let's see. So the one opposite of the last element. Well, let's see. How do I explain this? If you release the lever for the last element, the dit, even before the dit starts sending, if it's in the gap or the space between the two, it'll still trigger that final element to send.
Yeah.
But that yellow line is sort of that cutoff point. So where things start to differ with squeezing is if you release that opposite element or that final element before the end of the second to last element.
Right.
So in this case, again, we're trying to send a C, theoretically, and if we press and hold the da, the index finger, and then during that first character, or I guess before the second character, or second element, I should say, before the second element begins, if we press and squeeze both levers, then it'll send those alternating elements. But if we release the da and then the dit before the end of the third element, then with iambic A, we will still get that last element because it's detecting in the buffer that the dit lever was pressed even while the second to last element was sending. But oh shoot, well, crap, I have these backwards.
I was gonna say, I think they might be.
Yeah, I totally have these backwards. Let's fix that before I confuse everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand by. We are doing a live adjustment on the fly.
I like this.
This is, I mean, I got to tell you, this is really kind of hard to explain, and I think this is really a great way to explain it because you have a time constant.
Yeah.
You have I don't want to call it, it's not a squeeze. It's when you actually actuate either the left or the right paddle for a certain period of time. And, you know, I've always simplified it by saying iambic B has a 1-bit memory and iambic A does not. You know, so if you if you hold it for a certain amount of time, it will remember the next bit, whether it's a dot or a dash. But
yeah. No, this is
like
great. This is awesome. I mean, I would have never.
An awesome way to deliver this, Adam. This is great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like what you're sending versus what you're squeezing. I mean, I'm totally
Yeah, I guess while Adam's fixing that, I could say that, in practice, I have to be an Iambic B guy because I'm always a little bit ahead of what's being sent. And for Iambic A, I would be losing dits and das all over the place.
Yeah.
And I remember I was on, I think my uncle used Iambic A, and he's like, I started, calling CQ, and it was like dash, 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 dot. Or I'm like, what am I doing? Is something wrong? Because if you're used to it, and and maybe that's a sloppy way. Like I learned like a loose way of doing it, so I need Iambic B. You either learn A or you learn B, and that's the way you know it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for those of you who are joining late and are watching graphics 101 going on the screen here, and I mean, these things happen. We're talking about iambic keying, and we're talking about what happens when you squeeze both paddles together, and the timing and the synchrony in which you squeeze them and release them, and the effect it has, whether you've set your keyer or your radios with built-in keyers, to iambic A and iambic B. And that's what we're into right now. So this comes into play only, TJ, correct me if I'm wrong here, only when when you're grabbing both, right?
Well, I mean, somebody said that, even with a sideswiper, and I think Adam even alluded to it last week, that, if you're cruising along, even if a sideswiper, I can even do a demo of where if you send an N, for example, if you don't time it right with how you send it, you will only get the dash and not the, subsequent dot.
Yeah. So I thought that iambic A versus B would make a difference in that case, but I think I've changed my mind on that. I don't think it actually does. I think it only registers for a squeeze, and I'll try to explain that now that I've corrected my graphics here. So thank you guys for the distraction while I fix that. So this is actually correct. So in iambic A mode, if the final lever is released before the end of the third element there, it won't play that last element. It won't send that last element. However, with iambic B, it looks ahead a bit more. And the interesting, what you hear commonly is releasing at the same time. If you squeeze the levers and release them at the same time, it reacts differently. But I think the key thing to realize is that there isn't actually a same time in computer speak. And the keyer is just a little computer. So so that's what I tried to illustrate here. They can be really close to the same time. They can be one a little after the other, or they can even be one a little before the other. And it all still does the same thing here. They still function the same way. And the logic or reasoning behind that is where that sort of buffer begins. And and I have those reversed here. So let's see here. Let's fix those on the fly once again.
Yeah, I like it.
That actually belongs there.
You are fast. That's pretty impressive. I don't think I could do that.
And that actually belongs there. And we'll see if I need to fix any others.
Does it belong at the end of the element, the first dit? Oh, I see what you're doing. Yep.
Yeah, because as long as you keep that dit held before, while you are into the DA on iambic B, it is going to produce that dit, the next dit.
Right. And I think what Vince said is, should it actually be this? Should it actually be about there? And yeah. I don't think so. Okay. I don't fully understand why, but I don't think so. I'm fairly certain it's actually at the beginning of the sending of the next character. And again, this kind of goes back to the difference between key down and key up. And key down registers sooner, like Vince said, at the beginning of the space before the character, but key up only begins to register at the beginning of, in Iambic B mode, at the beginning of the sending of the previous character.
Gotcha. Yep.
Or element, I should
Yeah.
say.
Yep.
So that's kind of an illustration of those buffers, and again, that's what applies for key up. Now, one of the other interesting things for Iambic A versus B, and this illustrates the difference on key down, and that's what that pink line draws. So let's say you're sending CQ, and you want to send a Q. So you're going to just hold down the DA paddle, and then if you just give a tap to the DIT paddle, sometime after that second dash begins to send, it'll register that into the buffer because it's registering that key down from the beginning of the sending of that element.
Yep. Yep.
If that DIT lever had been held down from a previously sent element, it wouldn't register in Iambic A mode until the end of that element. So it considers key down different than it considers key up for a lever that's already sent a character off of that lever press.
So say that again. So if I
Let's see.
So if
So for in this case, right, we've got for Iambic A, we've got the DIT lever that was initially pressed during the first DA.
Right. Okay.
So that key down there registered to trigger this initial dot.
Right. Okay.
But when we released the lever or unkeyed the lever, that gets registered at a different point than when key down gets registered. So a key up gets registered only if it's or only still gets counted in the buffer if it extends beyond the end of the current character or current element for
because
Iambic A mode.
Because it has that memory, right? So it's got. So if I lift my DIT lever while I'm sending the DA in Iambic B, it says, oh, I still have another DIT to send because I was still sending and I need to finish that process, right? So then I'm going to send the DIT. But in Iambic A, whenever I let go of the DIT key while the DA is sending, it's not going to send anything because it gets to the end of that DA in Iambic A and says, nothing's being pressed on that DIT, so I'm going to quit.
Right. But I think the key element to understand here is that on key down, when the DIT lever was pressed, even if it was pressed like a microsecond after the DA lever was pressed, it'll still start to send the trigger that DIT even if you release it. Okay,
gotcha.
So it doesn't have to be held down until after the end of that first character.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's what I was kind of trying to illustrate here, is that it just has to be initially keyed down during that character or during that element, and then it'll insert that element into the buffer to send.
Right. So as long as you press the DIT key somewhere inside the space of the DA that you're sending on your queue, it will put it will create the DIT in between the DA that you initiated the DIT in, and will send it after that DA and then go back to the DA as long as you unsqueeze the DIT before the end of the second DA or does it really matter when you let go of the DAW? Can you continue to send the DAW through the DAW and then release?
Yeah. So if you extended this
Yeah.
dit press,
Right.
so long as you released it before the start of that last element,
Yep.
then you'd get the right thing.
Okay. Gotcha.
If you held it down until during that last element, then with Iambic A, you'd get the right thing. With Iambic B, you'd end up with that.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yep. Yep.
So each one kind of has its little quirks and is more or less forgiving in different ways.
Yeah.
And confusing to people who are used to doing one thing or another. I'll just note a comment that's come up in the chat from Arnold. He says, a friend of mine went out county hunting with me on my radio, and it about drove him nuts because I've always used Iambic B, he says. My friend thought he was getting RF in the key because he used Iambic A all the time.
That happened to me. That happened to me.
Yeah. So which is better? And you know, really, it boils down to personal preference. There is no simple answer to that. I prefer Iambic B. I feel like it's more forgiving for my style, and the way I typically squeeze and send. You might find the opposite for you. You know, some people who try to use Iambic B end up sending those extra elements after they intended to stop sending.
Yeah.
Or if you're like me and you switch over to Iambic A instead of B, then I start to drop off and miss an element on the end that I intended to be there. So really, you know, you kind of have to try each a little bit. I think the general recommendation is most people recommend to use Iambic B when you're starting. So
yeah. Jay Baker, like a lot of us, until Adam and TJ said, nope, this is, we should do a presentation because this is not it. Thought the difference was left it versus right it. Not
yes.
buffer versus no buffer. And I totally was on board with you, Jay Baker. I thought it was. So my experience was I went up to the top of a mountain with Red Summit RF, who was left-handed. And he said, hey, you want to work some CW? And I said, sure. So I sat down and I could not, it was different. And I literally said, oh, this is Iambic A versus Iambic B. We have to figure out how to do this in the radio. I could never figure out how to do it. So I just flipped the key upside down and started sending CW.
Good idea.
I saw that on somebody else's stream. I forgot who it was. And they said, oh, just flip the key upside down. So I sent Morse code with the key upside down. But I went that whole weekend, and Red and I talked in the car about Iambic A and Iambic B. We had like an hour discussion about left it versus right it. And I had it in my brain that was it, and that is not it.
That's awesome.
Turn the battle upside down. That's
so
great.
I hope that at least made some sense. I know it's a confusing thing, and I'm gonna go ahead and take this presentation, make it so anyone with the link can access it.
Yeah.
Copy the link.
That's awesome.
Drop it in the chat there. And you're welcome to put that in the show notes too if you want.
Very good. Very good. Vince, did we have any other questions?
Yeah, we did. So Adam mentioned from 45 Auto, Adam mentioned Iambic A and Iambic B still matters with a sideswiper. Can you explain that? Or maybe TJ,
So
both you guys.
Yeah, I previously did, and I think I've proven myself wrong in my experimentation. So I don't think it actually does. I thought the buffer, to explain why I thought it was different, I thought the buffer was also different for the key down or part of the lever press, as well as if it's squeezed or held. And it's actually not. The key down timing and the key down impact on the buffer, or what gets sent next, is the same for both A and B, as far as I can tell. What differs is what happens when the lever is held for more than one element, and how the buffer reacts or is triggered when you squeeze for a single lever, or I'm sorry, both levers, but for the second or nth element of that lever that gets sent.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Yeah, go ahead,
One more
Vince.
question here.
Yeah.
Now, this does not particularly pertain to Iambic A versus B, but Gary Wilson, 2E0APG. Hi guys, excuse me. My encoder brain works good, but I can't get my decoder brain working for some reason. How can I learn to receive better? And a string of question marks. Gary, if you can figure this out, man, call me. The problem we've all got, eh?
So the answer to the question on receiving is practice, right? And getting on the air. And we have over and over have preached, if once you learn all 26 characters and all the numbers and a couple of pro signs, probably question mark is probably your most important one that you're probably going to learn, and maybe BK back to you, get on the air and start practicing your craft, right? That is the best way. The only way that you're going to get better in decoding is by receiving, getting on the air, hearing the different types of fists that are out there, and decoding what a D sounds like sent 20 different ways, And once you get on the air, and I have found this is my experience, is every time that I go out and practice CW, I can listen to tapes. I can listen to YouTube videos. I can listen to whatever the practice method is. It doesn't mimic the real world of the different tones, the way people send, the different pitches of the CW. And whenever I go out, I will start my, let's say a pod activation. I will start my pod activation at maybe 16 words a minute, okay, for example. You don't have to start that fast. You can start it at 10 words a minute, 12 words a minute, whatever you feel comfortable at. But I guarantee you, once you start making QSOs and you start feeling comfortable, bring that word per minute up one word per minute, and start cranking that word per minute. And I have found that if I do an hour activation on PODA, at the end of that PODA activation, I'm at 21 or 22 words a minute. Just by that hour of just going over the characters one by one over and over my head, I'm getting better by 5 words a minute just after an hour. And you'll find, and then I'll go back out and start at 18 words a minute, and then start coming up in words per minute. So just crank that. Once you feel comfortable, crank it up another word per minute and see how you do. And then crank it up again, and then crank it up again. So practice.
Practice indeed. Gary is saying that's the problem. I learned Morse in 96 and haven't had a QSO. Well,
yeah.
No time, Gary, no time like the present, man.
Yeah.
In 2003, I took my CW endorsement because at that time in Canada, that's what I needed to get on HF. And I've showed my joystick key before. It's over my shoulder on the bench behind me. And that's what I did my exam with. And I made one contact and I put it away. And 15 years later, I got back to learning it again. And now here I am trying to learn more and trying to suck less. And it's a day-by-day challenge. Just give it some time every day and you'll get there.
Yeah.
It really is that simple.
You don't, I've played the piano for 40 some odd years. And if I would have practiced 30 minutes a day while I was younger, I would be 3,000 times better than I am today. But I just didn't practice. And Morse code is like that. If you don't practice every day, you get a little rusty. I mean, I can still sit down at the piano and play something, but my sight reading and playing just, naturally is hard, right? Same with CW. So it, yeah. And spacing, your Farnsworth spacing. Like, don't be afraid to space the characters out. Like, I worked a guy today on POTA, and his Farnsworth spacing was, I think he was down to 16 words a minute, and his Farnsworth spacing was was broad, right? So I literally, I was still sending at 20 words a minute with my keyer, but I was sending them, I sent an A, and then waited a couple seconds, and then sent another A, and then waited a couple seconds, and then sent the 0. And he came back to me with a couple times with a question mark, and I did it again, right? And that's just the way it happens. And if you are out there doing a POTA or searching and pouncing or whatever you're doing, and they're not slowing down for you, spin the dial or go somewhere else or ignore him and ignore that person, and then pick up the next person. Because if they're not slowing down for you and sending at your pace, you don't want their QSO anyway.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like too uptight about grabbing, if you're doing a QSO with somebody and you're like missing words here and there, it's not the end of the world either, right? If he said it was like 53 degrees outside and he's like, 7 miles south of Chicago, it's like, all right, well, maybe I got his temperature, but, does it really matter as long as you're like capturing parts of that and you're starting to build your like CW vocabulary? I think that's an important part in trying to relax through it too. Whenever I play around with contests, it's always like that first hour is just like, I suck at copying because I'm like, in the wrong headspace. And after a while, it's like, okay, cool. You start to get a rhythm and you're not super worried about it as much anymore.
Yeah. Someone had Behind Bars Radio? And I think Adam answered it, but he said something along the lines, I think it was him. But anyway, do you do anything to get warmed up? Like, do you guys do anything? I do. I know what I do. What do you guys do to get warmed up? What is the Hans and Franz? We're here to bump you up. We're here to make you CW operators. Do you guys do any warm-ups at all?
Well, Red Summit RF has a great one. He says, yeah, I sent QRL a few times. Thanks, Charlie. That's great.
I'm one of the jump in the pool kind of guys. I just jump right in. I'm like, oh my God, that water's freezing,
I do. So whenever I are driving to a POTA, I'll listen to CW Ninja on my way out there to get kind of warmed up and to remember what a D sounds like. 2 A's, a 0, and a Z sound together, what that sounds like. But yeah, I do a little warm up. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And my CW copying skills at first are rusty, like TJ said. But then after you been in the contest or activated for 30 minutes to an hour, you kind of get in the groove. The nerves start to settle down, and I start to get less anxious, and I start to copy more in my head versus just hearing the words or the letters together, So yeah, I think it's totally okay to do some warm ups.
Yeah, and we've got some great answers. Ham Radio Tectonic says, I send Ben's best bent wire 5 times. I think I've heard that in CW Ops. You guys should try that one. That's I was gonna say a tongue twister. It's a finger twister, and TJ's gonna go out and try it now. Dennis 8060M says he likes to send the alphabet and then the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. I mean, there's a whole pile of these sort of warm-up things you can do. I've got a sheet somewhere from CW Ops that they printed, and I know LICWC does, Long Island does the same thing as well, right, in their materials.
Yeah, I didn't know until I started sending in one of the Long Island CW classes, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. It has every word or every letter in the alphabet. I had no idea. I learned that in one of those classes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either. Learned something new tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes back to learning on a manual typewriter in grade 9 for those of us who've been around when Morse code was done on LPs, not on cassette tapes.
Mhm.
I'm in the cassette era,
Yeah.
like on Sirius XM, the cassette
Yeah.
years. Classic, classic rewind.
That's great. Adam, these are great graphics that you
The-
put together. This really helps for me. This really helps gel it. And now I can go back experientially because I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn by reading and watching and doing hands-on, like by all of those things. Now I can go back and look at your notes, and as my potty mouth comes out as I'm playing with these things with my keyer, I'll understand at least why it's doing what it's doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And some keyers you can dial back to like super slow speeds, and then you can really kind of experiment with it and see, what does what with different inputs. So
Yeah, I think Adam's terminology of there being a buffer, I always called it like a 1-bit memory. Like, is there a dit or a da coming out? And Iambic B kind of has that buffer. I like that word better. And I think if you dial it back to like 5 words a minute or even 4 words a minute, and you play with the different squeezing, and actually if you have a sideswiper too, you can kind of find that if you're a little bit too fast, like sometimes Iambic A works a little bit differently. And I also know that I think there was this like I don't think Iambic A on all transceivers is always the same. It seems like there's a little bit of variation. And I heard that there was this like Iambic A Curtis chip that was produced, years ago that had like just a slight tweak to what Iambic A really does. And then I've used Iambic A on other radios that I'm like, wait, this doesn't even seem like it works the same way on, one of my radios. So
TJ,
standards are great. Let's all have one.
exactly.
Sorry, yeah, Kyle, go ahead.
TJ, do you use Iambic A or B?
B.
B. Adam, you use B?
I use B.
Vince?
I don't. I don't, right?
He uses C.
C, yeah.
I use Iambic V.
I think I use Iambic B. I think mine are set to Iambic B. But now that after I've had the discussion with Red Summit RF in his car of now what the difference is, or both of us were confused, and now we know, I'm going to go upstairs and set my keyer to like 10 words a minute, and I'm going to go from Iambic A to Iambic B and figure out which one is for me, because I don't think, like, I've always set my keyer to Iambic B, but I have not done a lot of simultaneously squeezing of the dit and the da, and that's something that I'm working on to do that. But now I got to figure out, okay, is A the best for me or is B the best, and kind of stick with one, right?
If you try to slow it down less than 10, go to
10?
like 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or if you can, that kind of gives you a little bit more pronounced way to kind of experiment with it, because the length of the DAs is nice and long, and you can kind of experiment with even a sideswiper. If you send the letter N, and if you go boom, boom, and you're still within the DA, a lot of Iambic A's won't generate that dit at the end of an N, for example.
Gotcha.
So try to go really slow, and as you go faster and faster, you're just going to have to rely on what is comfortable for you. But the bringing it down to like 4 words a minute will kind of give you that's what it's doing. That's kind of weird. Okay, so let that be like the
Okay.
method of you exploring that A or
Gotcha.
versus B.
Yeah, I think, and I'd have to look at different characters that you can use a squeeze method to send, but I think Iambic B gives you basically more time in which you can release the lever to get the right character still. So it gives you a larger time frame to to sort of do the right thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Now, here is the DSP filtering that out?
A little bit. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't have like cool audio setups like real YouTubers, so I'm working on it.
Sometimes just getting the sound to come out of the microphone is
Right.
a win.
Yeah, I think there was somebody posted on my, I've got the most ghetto YouTube channel. So somebody was like, hey, if we can get like some audio piped in from the radio, I was like, hey, I'm going like this with my phone to do the video.
Yeah.
I'll try to work on that at some point.
Yeah, baby steps. Baby steps.
It's gonna take years for me.
Oh, we got a list of squeeze characters. Thank you, Whiskey Delta 4 Dan. Charlie,
Dan.
Kilo, Radio, and Iambic good characters: Charlie, Fox, Kilo, Lima, Quebec, Romeo, and Yankee.
No punctuation. Oh my goodness.
No punctuation. I would think did it would be classic for that, but
Yep, that's another one. Yep.
I would think.
Period.
I'm gonna have to go experiment. Or a period or a comma.
No, you actually can't squeeze the question mark because it's two elements, two of the same elements, and then two of the same elements again. So
can't you go did it?
But you're not.
It's not a squeeze at the same time.
Yeah, it's not a squeeze.
Yeah.
So the squeeze is good for the ones that have alternating elements.
Yeah. All right.
If you time it right, you can do like SK all that just with one squeeze.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What Charlie was saying.
You can't hear that because I don't have good, audio.
Charlie in the chat says the only squeeze he says is when he's sending CQ. Oh, so that's pretty easy. Right on. Well, this has been fascinating.
Yeah, Adam, thank you for putting those slides together. That was a very good representation of explaining A versus B. I totally get it now. Like now I could probably go to someone and say, hey, this is the difference between A and B, whenever they go, oh no, it's the right dit versus the left dit. And I'm like, hang on. Let me show you a YouTube video and a presentation by Adam that will explain to you what the difference between A and B is, and you will understand it after he gets done explaining it. So very good.
I will say that's all based on what I've been able to devise from tinkering with it with slow keyer speeds. So I'm sure there's an error in there like there was before that I fixed. So if you find an error and want to make a comment on the file, I greatly appreciate it. Or if you have ideas on other ways to explain it or other characters or other things that it affects that I didn't include in the presentation, I'll go back and add it because I want to make it sort of a living document and make it even better if it's possible, if there's more to add to it. So yeah.
This would be a great discussion and presentation to a club. There's always clubs out there that have a lot of CW operators, right? And I've been in my club, and I remember going to my meetings, and many years ago, there was a very lengthy discussion after the meeting about Iambic A versus Iambic B. And at the time, I was not a CW operator, and I kind of ignored what they were talking about, but they were discussing A versus B, and this, it is a topic of discussion among people in clubs. So I think it would probably be a very received presentation to get people thinking about, oh, that's the difference between A and B. Because a lot of people I'm sure people watching the stream and, Vince and myself, we had no idea. So learn something new. Very good. All right. We've gotten about to that time. Any final questions in the chat? Put them into the chat. I think we're going to start wrapping it up here. Vince, what do you got? You got anything coming up on social media that you want to plug? What's coming up on the workbench?
Well, I'll get this paperwork out of the way, and then I'm going to pick up my soldering iron again. But I think I have been inspired to talk about DSP transmit audio as my next video, and that may be a quick little a quick little video to fill in some time when I'm in a self-imposed soldering exile, making Canada revenue happy with me.
You've been put
went-
into soldering purgatory.
Kind
I've
of
been put
reminds me
into
of a
soldering
rabbit hole I
purgatory.
went down. I was trying to learn some SSB stuff, and I went down a rabbit hole of I didn't know this existed. ESSB.
Oh, enhanced SSB,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm like, wow, that's like pretty
What's
cool
that?
stuff.
What's that? 3.4 kilohertz wide or 3.7 kilohertz wide
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, I've met a few people. There's a fellow local to me who is a strong practitioner, and his name escapes me. And he has a YouTube channel. He explains it really, really well. I'll see if I can't find that.
Is that Kilo Zero Mike Oscar?
No, he's a VE6
Oh, he's
near
a B.
near,
Okay, gotcha.
near me.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. Well, I saw the AI7.
Oh well, yeah. That's when I'm down in the States too. Yeah. There we go. Anyway, that's what's going on.
Very good. TJ, what's coming up on your channel? You put out a few videos since last time, haven't you?
Yeah, I think
Some
so. I just
awesome
kind of like
videos.
I just put them out as I think of them. I was going to start. A lot of people keep asking me. It's like, hey, I want to, learn CW, and I always say, just, go to the Long Island CW Club or CW Ops or Contest University, or there's like a million things out there, right? So, I was going to try to put like one of those generalized videos, like that front ends my thing that just kind of says that, if you really want to just start learning it, this is what you should do, and maybe, try to find um, a club like Long Island or something like that. So thinking about doing that.
Very good.
Surprising that, like, I guess nobody, a lot of folks still don't know about some of those places and opportunities. And some folks were expressing their frustration with like Code Ninja, for example. And I was like, well, I mean, that's like when you know all the letters, or I mean, you kind of like almost have to have a game plan built to be able to go
Yeah.
Code Ninja, YouTube videos and start listening to that. You just can't just start listening to code and think it's going to magically
Right.
come in. Which, when I was a kid, I tried like code hypnosis. I tried listening to like CW with my headphones and falling asleep. I mean, I did it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a hard time with it.
You have to have command of the letters and the numbers, even though, even if you're decoding at a very slow pace, you got to have command of the letters and the numbers. So go through Long Island CW Club, the carousel, go to CW Ops, learn the letters and numbers, and then start your journey, because it's gonna be frustrating if you learn by word association, or you learn by
Phonetics.
phonetics, or you're using a decoder. Please do not do that. Do learn by the rhythm of the tones, and get some help. Go to therapy.
Here's a question. Oh, this is therapy, by the way, right? No. Here's a question. I get this question when I do respond to people. It's like, some of them don't want to take a regimented course, or they want to take more of a relaxed approach to learning CW. And any ideas there on places they can just kind of like just learn letters? Start by learning numbers. I was thinking about just starting to put some videos together on that. It's like, hey, if you just want to take a casual approach to learning CW, here's some mind-numbing introduction to A's, T's, E's, and O's, and just kind of start running down the program.
Yeah.
We could get into a whole other hour here, and I just moderated last weekend at QSO Today Ham Expo for a group, morsebase.com, morsebas.com, and they are promoting learning the sounds through music and syncopation. And so go take a look at their website. Joe Brett in the comments has already done that because he's a fan of the bass. And you'll hear some sounds there, and you'll hear some
there you go.
interesting ways to learn there. So yeah, that's kind of a casual, relaxed way in my mind. And so I'll put in a plug for that, and I'll invite everybody to go take a look at the videos from QSO Today Ham Expo, to go look for that one, or to, you know, in a month's time when they're released more publicly, you'll find them there too.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating topic.
Yeah. Adam, what you got anything coming up that you want to promote?
Oh, not much. I know I keep promising to get more kits put together, and work keeps kicking my butt. So they will get there, I promise.
The world's tiniest
it's
key just released.
Yes, I did
straight
just
key.
post.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go find a link for that. But I finally posted the mini straight key on printables. It should be relatively easy to find there under my call sign and profile, and in the link that I'm about to post in the chat. There are a couple other variants of that I will post when I get the chance to do so. But that's a fun little build too.
Yeah, very good. On this channel, I've been busy doing video stuff. I streamed on Saturday. I streamed on Sunday. I streamed today. I released a video about how to filter your AC cords through some toroids.
Great video.
Yeah, it's done well. And so next week on Sunday, I'm dropping a video about Adam's tiny mic for the KX2 and the KX3 that my microphone broke. There's the fly. Get out of here, fly. My microphone broke, my AH7 Elecraft, and I needed another replacement. And it was 18 weeks back order and $70. And I'm like, screw this. And I happened to be searching for Elecraft mic, and I came across Adam's printable mic. So I bought one on Amazon, but you can print it out and buy the parts for all of the mic pieces. And I put it together, and I have a video coming out on Sunday about that. So be looking for that. And so then the week after that, I'm releasing a how to secure your Node-RED install. And then after that, I don't know, but that's what's coming out. So anyway, thank you, Adam, for the presentation. Appreciate it. It was, I learned something. And that's the whole goal
Awesome.
of this.
So did I.
Whole goal of this this thing that we're doing here. So Vince, TJ, Adam, thanks for attending. And yeah, that's it. 73, guys. See you later.
Thank you, 7-3.